All right, I think we get going here. So for everyone who's dialed in, thank you for joining, and good morning if you're in the right part of the world, and good afternoon if you're logging in from somewhere else, or good evening, I suppose, is also possible. So thanks for joining the WRM and Resolver Roadmap session. So this is Joe Crampton speaking. I'm the VP Product for Resolver, and we've got a couple of people from Resolver on the phone. We've also got Scott James, who many of you know, who will be on as well for any questions that might come up towards the end. So with that, let's kick off and get going here. First, just a little bit of an agenda for the call today. We've got about an hour. Mostly we wanted to step through a little bit of introduction, let you know a little bit more about Resolver, some of the continued support for the WRM product, and the ability to migrate to Resolver if and when you're interested, the timing on that, when that's relevant, if it's relevant for you guys, as well as an introduction to some of the products, and finally wrap up with an introduction to the events that we're going to be hosting, which will give you more opportunities to get to know the Resolver folks, as well as meet or continue to interact with some of the WRM people that you already know. With that, I'll move on. So first, we're pretty excited to have you all here. We're definitely really keen to have WRM participating. And a little bit of housekeeping before we go too far in. There's the Q&A panel for anyone who would like to post any questions. We can put those through. On joining in, your line is auto muted so that we don't have a lot of background noise, but you'll see in the WebEx console there's a Q&A panel. Type those in there. We'll try to allow some time at the very end for follow-up on questions. Of course, anything we don't get to, we can follow up directly with you afterwards. But please feel free to question away. So yeah, back to the welcome. We're pretty excited to have WRM on board, and what you'll see is that we're going to integrate directly, very much so, into Resolver and into the organization. So just a little bit for those of you who don't know who Resolver is. We try to define ourselves by a couple of different things here, and this is one of them. Our goal is to aim big, so accomplish some great things, and be loved by customers. And the last part is really what's really important to us here. You'll see that throughout all of our messaging, all of the content, all of our products, hopefully, and really throughout the entire value that we provide to our organization. And really the way that we try to achieve that is by making sure that things are easy and friendly to use, and that we don't create any unnecessary barriers in any part of our business, whether it's the products, the services, the sales, the marketing, the interaction, the support, across the board. The goal is to make that a great experience for you. For the risk management world, I think this makes a lot of sense. What Resolver does is protect what matters. And there's a really interesting way to break it down. It's like me, you guys are a bit of academics. And that protect is really what comes into play when you start to implement controls and implement action items and really sort of build up your defenses. And the what matters is, it rolls off the tongue, but it's actually a really interesting thing to go through an organizational profile and try to understand what matters to a company. It's very important to be able to identify those. And if you think about it, and those of you from a risk management standpoint will know this very well, the identification of risk as it relates to corporate objectives is really the heart of what matters. So what matters to the success of your business for the continued operations, continued growth and duration over time. So that's what we do. We focus on that, and we've been in this space for quite a while, and WRM is a very good complement to what we do as an organization. So you'll see that as we go. We talk about wanting to be loved by customers, and this is really where it comes to how we define ourselves as well. I think you can get to know an organization by who they support and by what they look at. And you'll see here that this is a sampling of some of our customers. We've got some of the bigger names on here, obviously, so that you can recognize them. But at the bottom, you'll see, of course, 1 million plus users on our software, 142 countries, where our software is used, 750 customers. We grow by about 100 customers a year, and over 3,000 deployments. So across those 750 customers, many of them have multiple deployments for different use cases or different applications. So that's pretty exciting. We're really proud of this and being able to help drive risk management, compliance, and security initiatives in all of these fantastic companies. Getting to know Resolver a little bit better, it sometimes helps to know physically where we're sitting. So I'm in Toronto right now, personally. Resolver has 2 large offices in Toronto and Edmonton, and 3 other offices in Dubai, Christchurch, and London of good size. So you'll see over time, you're going to be able to always, from a support perspective, if you join that webinar, reach the person at the right time for you, hopefully. We're going to do a follow the sun customer service time frame so that there's always somebody available regardless of where you're located. Obviously, that's a very, very important thing for anyone who's dialing in from a different area. No point reaching somebody and saying, oh, that's outside of our business hours. The other part of that, and we'll address this later on in the upcoming events, is that we absolutely are focusing globally on supporting customers and events and communication around the world as that fits. So that's something that we're going to continue to try to grow and improve. So there's a little bit of why we're really excited about WRM being part of Resolver now. First off, it's just a fantastic fit. The old Resolver, and I say old because Resolver is now a combination of 2 organizations called Resolver and PPM that were acquired and put together. But the originating Resolver is a pure GRC company, and is exactly what you'd expect from a WRM. Very, very similar, focuses on risk management at its roots with a compliance background and the GRC space. So we love the fit there. It's really, our organizations have worked together in the past and now have a chance to do so again, and that's exciting. We've with expansion, opened up a Christchurch location, expanded our London office, and expanded our Dubai office as well. So that's really exciting. And we've got obviously a number of people, which is coming up on the slide, that are some experts in risk management that have joined the team and are being able to sort of strengthen the bench and really be able to help us deliver the expertise in a lot of different areas. And then, of course, customer focus, 150 new customers, which is really, really exciting, and helps us focus on what matters. Just a couple of names here. Obviously, all of you have dialed in, may have worked with any number of these. Scott James, as I mentioned, is on the call, but there's a lot of other folks here that have contributed to make some great products over the years and are going to continue with Resolver to help build and define the next generation of our software and services and tools. So this is great. I've had a chance to meet a number of these people, and obviously over time we're going to continue to work together and deliver there. So we're really excited to have all of these folks on board. All right, getting into the heart of it. So this is a WRM roadmap conversation. So the most important thing here, of course, is support for the WRM products. The foundation here that we're going from is, of course, ERA, Kairos, and WRM, so version 7, 8, and 9 are excellent products, all of them. They all have their strengths. They have their depth of feature. They've all been used for different cases. Regardless of which ones of these people on the phone are using, they will continue to be supported. ERA 7 and 8 we will support through 2018, and version 9 will be even longer, likely through 2021, which is a very specific date, which I'll address in just a little bit. But those are excellent products. The key here, and people always say this, but if you take nothing else from the call, it's that if you're happy with what's happening with your software, if you're happy with the way it's performing and working, you should feel no obligation to rush to change anything. They're going to be continued to be supported. Bugs are going to get fixed, and we're going to work to be able to drive happy, successful customers on these products. That said, there are definitely times when people will want to see something new. I mean, it's technology. Technology is fun, and if you guys are anything like me, which I would imagine, it's great to play with some new toys. So that's something that we're going to give you the opportunity to do. You'll see as that top bullet point here, of course, there is a bit of a shelf life on the Silverlight technology. That's where the 2021 date comes in. It is supported until that point in time, but after that, there is a bit of a cutoff there. So that's a date, but that's a few years out, so we have a bit of time there. And what the strategy is to provide you an opportunity to move to a different product before that point in time. So nothing immediate, no rush, no urgently change anything. If the software's performing, you've got your time. But that said, we are an existing GRC company. We have a lot of great products already that perform in this space. And we had, back in 2015, decided that we were ready for a next generation technology that would take GRC and incident management, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that, but take GRC and incident management to the next level, bring them together into one platform, expand the vision, expand the capabilities, and deliver some really exciting, fantastic technology that will really help you succeed. So that's already in the works and aligns very nicely with what the WRM products do and the feature set for them. So a couple of bullet points here, and obviously, it's hard to think about migrating to something when you haven't seen it and it's a few years out, but there are some fundamentals that we want to emphasize here. If and when this happens for you guys, you need to know a couple of things. The objective is that it'll be a near zero services cost for migration. So this is a big part of it. Obviously, there's some work to move from one product to another one. We don't believe that should be on you. That should be us upgrading you from one product to another. So we say near zero because there are sometimes circumstances that mean there have to be some costs, but the goal is to keep that as low as possible, approaching if not actually zero. And the second bullet point, which I think is also very, very important here, is the ability to say we were doing something in our software, we're going to continue to do that in a new product, and we want it to just continue to work. So what that means is, like for like, if your use case carries over to a new product, you shouldn't have to pay any more to do the same thing. So we're not going to charge you any money to do that. What we want is people using the software, loving it, and then expanding their use cases, adding users, adding new functionality, adding new things in the platform. And when you do that, then you can pay us more money if you'd like. The goal is not to try to squeeze extra cost out of the same scenario. So a couple of things here that that's straight from our CEO, and he's very passionate about keeping people engaged in the products and happy and using them, and that's something that we live by, and we want to make sure that you're aware of. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about migrating to some products. That doesn't mean much until you know what they are. So by way of introduction, here are 4 of Resolver's existing products that are our 4 biggest products prior to WRM. So the first is Ballot. It's a workshop risk assessment tool. So it's used by people in a boardroom together to do anonymous voting on risk impact and likelihood, control effectiveness. It's used by almost all, actually 9 of the top 10 global accounting firms. So if you think of, PwC, Deloitte, Ernst & Young, Protiviti, Grant Thornton, the list goes on, plus, many other large organizations, banks, insurance companies, manufacturers. It's a very, very popular, Ernst & Young has a worldwide license, uses it in hundreds of assessments around the world all the time. If you've been part of a group risk workshop where you anonymously vote on things, pretty good chance that was Ballot. The second software that I'll highlight here is called GRC Cloud. And the name is a little bit tricky there. It doesn't have to be in the cloud, but it is available that way if you'd like. So it's a web-based application, which is a GRC software. If you're thinking, where does WRM align to these things, that's the closest fit. So GRC Cloud and the WRM stack of products are, equivalent. They have some differences, of course, but those are roughly the same category of product. So governance, risk management, compliance. In the top right, we've got a tool called Perspective, and that's an incident and case management tool that comes out of the security world. So that's something that, typically your security teams would use to document incidents, how they get recorded, what are we doing about them, investigating how to recover and restore the organizational strength. And that, depending on your backgrounds, may seem like a natural fit and may not. The idea around incident and risk is something that is very, very closely related, and that's something I'll dive into in a minute. But that's a great expansion to our product set. And Command Center in the bottom right corner is our security operations and guard dispatch tool. So right in the heat of the moment, you imagine an event is unfolding in some way, and you need to say, where are resources, what's happening, how are people located, where are people, are they accounted for? Think crisis room, big monitors on the wall, lots of people tracking and talking to people on walkie-talkies and phones and awareness. It's a very tactical, operational risk management, business continuity environments here. So really that respond scenario. So those are our 4 existing products. And what you'll see here is we've assembled them on a little bit of a timeline. If you think of a sequence of events, starting on the very left here in a planning phase. What we're trying to do is we're ultimately, people talk about risk events being positive and negative. As a little bit of a personal tangent here, an event is an event. It is not positive or negative. It's the outcome or the result of that could be positive or negative depending on what you do about it. So the planning and preparation on the left-hand side is really the work that goes into preparing for, sometimes avoiding, sometimes being ready for an event to occur. And the response and recovery is really around, so that event happened, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to manage that? How are we going to recover? And how are we going to grow as an organization? And you can see these areas. This is traditionally where GRC sits in your audit and planning work. And your traditional incident management would be documenting it, recovering from it, investigating it, and so on. So these fit very, very nicely together. And one of the things that will, get some animations here, just I'll bring those in. One of the things that you'll see is that the vision for an integrated risk management platform spans those very nicely. And for those of you on the phone that use WRM version 9, you'll be pretty familiar with the idea of incidents and loss events being linked directly to risks. So we're continuing along those lines and adding on even more layers and more capability on both sides of the event. So just looking across the spectrum here, risk and regulation, this is really the foundation of it. So what are the risks we're trying to mitigate? What are the regulations we're trying to achieve compliance with? These are the driving factors that enable an organization to intelligently allocate resources and manage that. So it's really identification of that information. The second box, how are we going to do that? What policies are we going to implement as an organization? What controls are we putting in place to be able to limit the risk or detect something once it's occurred and go through any of that management? The audit function is, of course, validating that it's working properly. So bringing our control environment, our policies, our procedures, our strategies into a world where we can test them and confirm that they are operating as designed and that they're functioning the way we need them to in order to be successful. Monitoring flips into that more of the real-time thing where you're looking at key risk indicators or key performance indicators, perhaps continuous control monitoring and getting into that finger on the pulse of the organization to be able to be aware and to be able to respond quickly. At the end of both cycles here, I'll just address them both at the same time, but there's an improvement piece. And this is really where you get into being able to identify what your action items are and your issues, and assigning them to people and driving continuous improvement. So when you think of the improve piece, it's helpful to think of this as actually a bit of a loop instead of it being as a continuum or straight line, and that obviously there's a feedback that comes back to the beginning. Now, even with the best of plans, an event can of course still occur, and that could be something that you were prepared for or that you weren't. Regardless, it's happened. There's a need to respond to that. So we talked a little bit about that command center ability to respond in the moment, as well as, of course, document the incident, capture all the information there. Why did this happen? Think root cause analysis, contributing factors, any of those things that would feed into why it actually unfolded. Perform an investigation to really dig deeper and to know who was involved and how did it link, and is there a pattern here, and is there something we can learn from this? And of course, analytics and data analysis is the heart of a lot of key systems these days, and is able to drive continuous improvement from the real data that we have here. So what you've got, hopefully you're able to understand that picture that I've tried to illustrate, but a really good vision across the entire risk lifecycle. So we call this the PPRR lifecycle for planning, preparation, response, and recovery. And this shows what we're thinking of and what the positioning for Resolver's products are. And you'll see how our various different applications fit into the lifeline here to work in a cohesive fashion. So a little bit of academia here just to see how this unfolds and to see why this is really important. This is a study done by Oxford Metrica in 2001 that looks at the valuation of an organization after a catastrophic event. So as you look across timelines, we've got days on the bottom and value on the y-axis. As you look across the timeline, you've got a rapid drop in what happens, tends to have a little bit of a recovery around day 100. But then if you look, towards the later half of the year, 200 days later, 250 days later, you've got a fall off again. And so what you see is sort of a 2 to 4% drop in value of an organization from a big catastrophe. So, if it stayed at the 8%, that could be pretty detrimental to a company. If a 2 to 4% is not a great thing, it could be a large decrease in their value and their share price. So what does that mean? If we look at that, obviously, generally we'd like to avoid a catastrophe. And you see what those benchmarks are. It's a pretty scary looking thing. But there's a bit of a better way. Thankfully, it doesn't have to be so grim as that. So what you've got here is if we break that data out into two groups, and you look at the people who recovered and did not recover, you actually have a very interesting trend that happens. So if you split that out, you'll see our baseline around the 0% mark. The people who recover actually are able to recover very, very quickly. So, 25 days and they're back above the line. And then they're actually able to achieve growth and success beyond that initial benchmark line. So, there's a lot of studies about this in the operational risk world that talk about the success of an organization to withstand an event is often what they do afterwards. We like to think of it as being prepared as well as responding and recovering well. But there's a very clear valuation, very clear business case here for an organization to have a strong risk management plan that deals with both the planning, the preparation, the response, and the recovery. All right, so that's a tall order, a lot of stuff to do in software. And as we said, we really want organizations to have a good experience, a good interaction. So that's why at the end of 2015, around August, September 2015, we started work on a new product, a new platform called Resolver Core. And we did that for a couple of reasons. The primary part being, we had some excellent applications that were best of breed. I put WRM in that same category, but we wanted some new tech that would really perform and scale well. The way people use software has changed. It's dramatically mobile. People need to work on planes. They need to work in different environments, tablets. They there's also an expectation of software working and fitting for you. So it's no longer the traditional SAPs and the large, clunky, heavy implementation software of a few years ago. It's now in a world where you should be able to configure it and personalize it and tweak it to match your organization and to make it perform the way you want. So with those foundations, and you can see there, performance, scalability, security, and flexibility were our real goals. We set out to create a new product called Resolve Core. So the foundation, we talked about devices a little bit here, but it works on any device you want, fully web browser based, no local installs. So we're looking at cross web platforms, so IE, Safari, Chrome, Firefox, as well as no dependency on operating systems. So if you're on mobile, Android and Apple, I think there are still some Windows phones out there. If you're on a desktop environment, Windows and Apple and Linux and whatever else, all valid options here. So you don't have to worry about any of the technical restrictions that way. For anyone on the phone who is a little bit more technical, there's a little bit of a slide here to show some of the key points. I'll go light on this. You can always look at this later on or ask us for more information. But the summary that works well for me, being just a little bit technical and not a lot technical, is that a lot of this great open source technology has come from people like Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn. And we've gone through those technology stacks, and they've of course made these things open to the markets. And so there's a really good user interface rendering engine from Facebook, which makes the pages really quick and helps reduce the amount of data that has to be sent back and forth. There's some excellent technology around pushing out updates and communication. There's a great ability to scale and to perform at very large volumes of data as well that are built in here as well. The only other piece here, if you look at the structure, the server, the web browser, and mobile apps, everything runs through this web service API. So what that means, if you're technical, you'll know what some of that means, but a fully open API for those of us in the business world means that everything that happens through the user interface of the software can actually be accomplished directly through the API, which means that you could take our software and you could hand it to a technical person in your organization, and they could write a component for it. They could write an integration to a different software. They could write a mobile app. They could do any of those things, and it would work directly off of our platform. So there's no need to pay for special custom engagements or code or any interactions in that way. It's fully open, and you're able to use it and extend it as you wish. Okay, so you got a good understanding, hopefully, of what the Resolver Core platform looks like. But that's great. That's the technology piece. What we need to do now is show you how our various different products. So we talked about Perspective, Command Center, GRC Cloud, and WRM will move through into the Resolver Core platform and be part of it. So there's two different ways that we deploy with Core. There's native applications that are built into the software, and there's also integrated applications. And the majority of the software will be native applications. It fits very well. It's totally seamless to the end user. They're just logging in and they're doing anything they wanted. Some use cases are a little bit different. We highlighted a couple of them over there, Command Center and Policy on the right-hand side. And they're a little bit different because they have different characteristics and different use cases. So Command Center, if you want a big wall of monitors and you want many different tabs and many different windows open for alarm management and video systems and all that sort of stuff, that's fine for a backend in Core, but that's not actually something you want in a web browser. So it's done as an integration level. It's a little bit different. Native apps, those acronyms, that's our branding for how we position things against Resolver, but you've got IMR, which is Incident Management Resolver, and LPR, Loss Prevention, AU is an audit, RM is Risk Management, and there'll be, of course, many more. These are configurations on the platform and allow us to be able to deploy really good solutions. I'll talk more about that in just a sec. Okay, so We talked about flexibility as one of the key components of Resolver Core. So what we've got is the ability to scale completely with an unlimited data model. So you can define new objects, define new fields, define new relationships, and link them together. I'm betting that sounds pretty familiar to anyone who is using WRM. It had a lot of the same characteristics, which is great validation that this is going the right direction. That's what organizations need to be able to adapt and to be able to model their data. And it's the way that a lot of software is going, and it's the right pillar for expansion and flexibility going forward. So if you've used version 9, think of that plus a little bit more flexibility. If you haven't, if you're on version 7 or 8, there'll be a lot more flexibility than what you've experienced so far. From a layout and visualization perspective, our goal here was we built a forms engine, and we exposed it completely to the end user. So with a little bit of a drag and drop interface, you can lay out fields in different positions, put them higher or lower, bottom right corner, change colors, add buttons, and similar kind of comments as the data model before. You know, if you're using an earlier version like ERA, there isn't as much of that flexibility. There's some. This would be similar to what the WRM forms engine has, and will of course continue to improve over time. But the goal is to really let you craft a form and a view that's very easy for an end user to operate with. There's an interesting thing that happens in risk management and compliance software, in that you've got users that many times are very infrequent. You got somebody who logs in. It could be 1 to 4 times a year, and that's something that they may have forgotten everything they've known prior to that point about the software, last time they did it, where to go, what to click on. So these views and these screens need to be really simple and really easy for people to be able to just pick up and do it. And so on-screen guidance, all of this text on here, you put it directly onto the form yourself, so you can have your own language, your own nomenclature, guide the user what to click on, what to do. The objective is to make it as simple as using any public website, which the vast majority of people can do without a help file or without some additional training, and that should be the benchmark for infrequent users. A workflow engine. This is a foundations of a pretty powerful workflow engine. As I mentioned, we're still in the build-out part of this technology, so there's more to come here. But you've got a state-based workflow with transitions, branching, conditions. So what does this mean from a business standpoint? It means that your data is kept up to date automatically with reminders, notifications, alerts, escalations. It means that if something is high risk or low risk or over a certain dollar value, it can be routed to the right person automatically. You can have programmable actions as a result of a transition, so you can create an issue automatically or an action item and assign it to somebody. And notifications and emails are built right in there too. Okay, I won't spend long on this slide. It's very important, of course, to have proper permissions and segregation. So as you build this flexible data model, as this is available, you've got the ability, of course, to shape your roles and your users and your permissions in a way that allows you to control what people can see and what they can do. So I think that's sort of a table stakes thing, but it's pretty important to know that a user could just see one risk or one field, and you've got that granular capability at the same time as having a lot available. And then reporting and analysis, you'll see a couple of samples here. We're still in the early days on this. There's going to be a lot more coming. For those of you who use WRM version 9, you have some great dashboards right now, and those are excellent things that we're going to be looking to build up to that point and beyond, of course. So that's something that we're working with Scott and team to try to help drive the features and the roadmap and the direction to deliver to you guys more than what you have even now, and continue to grow that. And of course, all the while being flexible and compatible for all sorts of screen devices and mobile phones and so on. All right, so hopefully I've convinced you that there's a lot of configurability and flexibility. You are quite likely sitting there maybe a little bit daunted by all the work that would have to go in to do that. And so we've got a solution for that too, actually, and it's applications that are pre-built on top of the platform. And that, while it's great to have a lot of configurability and flexibility, it's a lot of work to do that. And the expectation is not that you would have to do that work, but rather that we can give you an application, and from that point, you can tweak it and adjust it in small ways as you wish. If you want, you can go ground up, but there's no expectation that you'd have to do that. So here are a couple of the applications that will be central to the software. I've actually got a little bit of an updated list in the roadmap, so I'll cover the specifics there. But the idea is that specific use cases sit on top of the platform, so risk management, incident management, compliance, those sit there in a way that allows you to pre-shape the forms, the data, the roles, the reports, the access, the interactions, and be able to share with your fellow users, fellow companies that are also using the same environment. That's something that we learned too in the last, I've been doing this for about 10 years for the GRC space, and flexibility is fantastic, and we want to offer you that. We also, it's nice for you to be able to have peers that do something in a similar way or close enough that you're able to share experiences and best practices and learn and collaborate together. And so these applications will provide the foundation for you to do that. All right, so most of the WRM customers are risk management focused. So we're just going to highlight one application here, and hopefully that'll illustrate the kind of thing that the platform and the applications will do. There are many more, as you saw, but this is the risk management one. So this is built using foundations of COSO ERM and ISO 31000. So two of the largest standards in the risk management space, and it's designed to be a tool that you can use throughout the entire life cycle. So risk identification through assessment, monitoring, linking to loss events with real-time reporting, configurable yet mature and scalable all at the same time. So just a quick peek at what that looks like from a flow. We've organized it to work with 3 different roles here: a risk team, an objective or process owner, and a risk owner. And you can, identify what your objectives are, your processes, your categories, link the risks to them, perform an analysis, so what the contributing factors are, what the consequences could be, what the potential opportunities could be, perform an assessment, if you like to do, inherent and residual risk assessments, that's fine. If you'd like to just do one, that's fine as well. Risk treatment, so being able to say, what are the controls for the action items? What do I need to put in place? Does this exceed my risk appetite? And then implementing an automated risk monitoring framework, so key risk indicators, thresholds, notifications, and being able to know when that is reaching a point where you're not happy with it. And like anything else, it's configurable. So if you want to do part of that picture or all of it or some of it or this plus more, that's all easy to do as well, all through the web browser. So let me, with that note, I'll just switch quickly to my web browser, and I'll log in here. And so now hopefully you're being able to see my Safari window here. So I'm logged in as a user who, I've got a fair bit of rights for this scenario just for demo purposes, but consider me to be someone who's on the risk team, who's also a risk owner, and who's got access as a bit of a business leader as well. So I'm wearing all 3 hats for today's purposes. Just from an orientation, the left-hand side here is the menu, the navigation. We've got an ability to go back to the home screen where you see your task list. If I can go through, I can search that. I can find any information that I want as I go. And on the left-hand side, you can see a variety of different tasks, or we call these actually activities that somebody would perform. So risk identification, risk analysis, assessment, treatment, monitoring, and some reporting. So this is around building a scripted interaction for people so that they know where to go and what to do. And this is what comes in the application. If I click on any one of these links, it'll bring me to a form that will show me the details of that information. So let me just walk through this one fairly thoroughly so you can get a feel for it. There's an intro up at the top. Again, this is end user configurable. but the name of the risk, it's marked as a mandatory field. I've given myself permission to edit it, but maybe not everyone would have that. The risk owner is me. It's assigned to a risk category. There's a description of the risk. And then down here, if any of you are familiar with bow ties, you know about contributing factors leading into a risk event occurring and consequences coming out of the risk event if it was to occur. So we're big fans of that. It really helps from an analysis standpoint if you've done this work prior to doing your assessment to be able to go through and say what is the impact of an event is very difficult if you don't have an understanding of, well, what are the kinds of things that could happen? What are the real ways this impacts our business? You could document some controls. I've got one here that's already linked. You know, I'm saying that there's a maximum amount of the roadmap that can be made that is linked to customer commitments, and that helps us control the ability to do things on time. Clicking on any one of them will bring up a little panel on the right, and if I have permission, I could go in, I could change things, I could edit what the fields are, and so on. And just as a reminder, this is a bit of a best practice here, but there's a lot of different flexibility. If you want different field names or layouts or options, that's all easily done through a drag and drop wizard. So that just gives us a bit of a feel for one of the forms here. I'll just I guess I'll do it a little bit quicker because we're starting to narrow in on time here and want to leave some time for questions. But a little bit quicker through a bit of the process. So here's a risk identification screen where you could go and you could use categories or you could use objectives to identify a new risk. Of course, I could also just hit this button up at the top and I can say I want to make a new risk, and I'll get a form that allows me to document a new risk and assign it to somebody. So hopefully you're seeing the ability to sort of very quickly do that. I don't know if there's any bit of a WebEx lag or not, but this is performing really nicely, and the pages are very fast, very quick. And while we're on the note, if I was to shrink down my window here, you'll see that all the way down to like tablet mobile size, very, very flexible and easy. It just adapts to whatever environment you've got. And my menu's collapsed into a little flyout menu there, so that if I was using a small device like a mobile phone, that would be responsive in that way too. Let me just open that back up. So here's a risk identification approach. I showed you risk analysis already. I think given the time, I'm going to jump to risk assessment. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to pick one of my risks that I know has some data on it. So let's say we're looking at stakeholder complaints, something that we've got probably in every business line here. So we have a risk around stakeholder complaints. We have somebody who owns it. We have a number of controls. We have 3 incidents that have occurred that are related to stakeholder complaints. So this is something that's really interesting here. We talked about the pre and post event. Being able to tie the incidents directly to that risk helps us understand where they sit and whether the scenario, the risk assessment is valid or not. I've got some formulas here that show me the trend, so the latest impact, likelihood, control effectiveness, and the residual risk assessment, as well as the trend for the impact, likelihood, and control effectiveness, and overall risk score. So is it improving, is it getting worse? I've got a variety of different assessments over time. As I go and I'll just create a new one here just as a sample. Let's say that my impact now is going to be extreme and my likelihood is going to be unlikely. I'll put in a control effectiveness of strong, and put in some additional comments here. And I could go and I could create this, but I just want to show you a little bit of what I mean by on-screen guidance. So a lot of times people struggle with impact assessments and likelihood assessments because of what the scale means. And we've just put them down at the bottom of the form here, but you could have these up in line next to the drop down as well. You can put them anywhere you want. They could be links, they could be pop-ups. But here's a table that shows you from an impact assessment, if I'm going through incidental through to extreme, what my ratings are. And we put in some templates here. So it's, a dollar amount in a lot of cases, or a breach to a regulator, or maybe some morale problems. Similarly, for likelihood and control effectiveness, scale definitions that are embedded right away. That just makes it easy for people. All right, I'm going to create this one, and you're going to see another row up here in my table. And as I do that, hopefully you can see up at the top, might have been a bit of a lag with the WebEx, but all my formulas updated and changed, and you can see that I now have my latest impact as extreme, and that's something I might be concerned about. So one thing I wanted to highlight here, and I think it's very important for a GRC or risk management software, especially in such a broad space. What we're really trying to do, and I think a lot of you will identify with this, and hopefully I'll have a chance to talk to you all about this in person, but what we're really trying to do is make sure that everything is connected and all your data is linked within your one environment so that you know if we have a regulation or a policy that changes or a risk appetite or risk rating that changes, we understand what that means to all of the related data. Do we need to improve a control? Do we need to add a new action item to change something? What if some incident occurs that we never were aware of now? Has that raised a new risk in our organization that we need to be aware of and that we need to start tracking and monitoring and taking care of? And so what I'm going to show you here is a feature called the relationship graph. And this is, we're pretty early days in this feature. I think it's a little bit busy. When you look at it, you'll see the same thing. But this shows us all of the linkages. So we're clicked on a risk right now of stakeholder complaints. I'm going to click on this relationship graph, and you're going to go in and we're going to see how all of this different data links together. So here's my risk, stakeholder complaints. You can see, let's just scroll a little bit to the right. You can see 3 incidents, performing work without a proper license, unfavorable social media posting, and a privacy breach up at the top. You can see the various different controls, risk assessments, regulations, all the people that are involved. You can even see 2 different employees, Thomas Edison and Rene Descartes, that were involved in this incident. And you can understand how those go. And this is a navigation lens too, so I can click into any of these and move forward. So this is a bit of a link analysis function embedded right into the risk management tool that understands what those patterns and those linkages are. Over time, what you're going to see is the ability to explore and to navigate this and generate some interactive visuals that really help you understand those linkages and be able to model them. And then this feeds into the workflow engine so that if anything changes, you're able to carry that through the organization with the right communication, notifications, alerts, and so on, which is really the heart of it. There's a little bit more on monitoring and key risk indicators and thresholds, but I think given the interest of time, I'm going to jump to reporting. So there's a couple of things I'll just draw out. The first report I want to show you is something that is really popular with risk managers that work closely with the internal audit function of an organization. So if you think of the way risks break down, when you look at the risk rating and the control effectiveness, you'll see that you're able to actually group them into 4 areas really nicely. So something that is a high risk that has a weak control would be something that you'd want to remediate. Something that is a medium to a high risk, but that is better controlled is something that you might want to perform some audits on. Something that is a medium to lower risk that is well controlled, you might want to actually do some monitoring. And something that is low risk and well controlled, you probably don't have to do anything too much. Maybe it's an opportunity for control self-assessment. And so this is a view that actually helps you break out those risks into different buckets, and it's just filtered to do this. You've got some summary information up at the top in pie charts. If I click on any one of these, you can see details around them. And so this is the one that needs urgent remediation. And you can see the impact, the control effectiveness, the likelihood. And what it does is it prompts me here to identify an action plan. It's saying, the system's saying, we know by the way you've rated this, we've probably got to do something about it. And so we're giving you the form that makes it easy and obvious for you to know that you need to create an action plan. And it's that scripted narrative, that guidance through here that allows you to combine best practices and industry methodology right into the heart of the application to say, this is what we want to encourage people to do to improve their control environment according to their needs. Similarly, if I went down in here and I said, I've got an internal audit, I might want to identify the audit that goes around it. And of course, if I create that, it'll send out an email notification. I can drill into the system. It'll alert the user based on that and so on. So that's a little bit of a peek at reporting. One of the things that I wanted to show you, and I mentioned, of course, that the software is still in development. It's still early days, and of course, there's no urgency to try this right away. But early days is we're working on a heat map. It's not in the product yet. This is a mock-up of what it will look like, and it's actually, if I click here, I can get an interactive. This is something that's going to be coming out in about a month, and will be part of the system then. So You'll be familiar with WRM heat maps. That's the foundation for what this looks like. And so you'll see a breakdown of a 5x5 with different risks plotted over top. And rolling over any one of those risks, you get a little bit of a pop-up so you can see some more detail. And if I click on any one of the risks, you'll get your palette view as well, so you can drill in and make changes if you have permission, or at least view the risk as well. So that's a good example of something, and you know, we'll do an update once that's available, and people can take a look at that as well. Okay, so I'm starting to run out of time here. I guess I was a little bit chatty on the demo. Apologize. Let me flip back to the roadmap here and just get you guys a picture of what's coming up. So the first thing on the roadmap is there is an upcoming release for WRM. Version 9.8 is targeting spring of this year. And we don't have the final scope for that yet. Obviously, there's a little bit of a team reassembly, and I guess we're about 30 days since WRM joined Resolver, so it's a pretty recent thing. But we're trying to get that going nicely and get a lot of the customer requests and the enhancements that have been popular into that release. For the product I just showed you, the applications that, so Resolver Core, the applications are listed there on the left-hand side. So Q1 and Q2, what's scheduled. There are webinar links that we can send out later on to the Risk Assessment Lite tool and the Site Assessments tool, which will give you different flavors of two different applications on the same platform. And over on the right-hand side, I talked about the heat map. This is in here, but there's lots more that's coming. It's going to be a very rapid cycle with lots of change over time and lots of enhancements. So what we're really saying is, you know, as these come out, as these different applications are released, we'll let you know about them. You're welcome to try them whenever you want. There's absolutely no urgency to convert to them or to use them in a hurry. What we want is, you know, you play with them a little bit, you decide you like it, and that's something that at some point in time you consider to use. Lots more to come there with you know, assessments and comments and dashboarding and all sorts of nice stuff. All right. So a couple of quick notes on upcoming events here. There's a Focus On in London if any of you are either dialed in from there or traveling there. That is coming up pretty soon, January 31st. It's at the Shangri-La Hotel, 9 to 4 p.m. If you're interested, there's more on our website. There's a Focus On in Melbourne, which is at Deakin University, February 28th and March 1st. And that's going to be, I believe, a 2-day event. There's going to be a cocktail reception on, I think it's the second day, but we double check. Anyway, more on our website, or let us know if you're interested. It's a great way to get to know the people of Resolver, to see more about the information, more about the product, ask questions, find out more about the future here. And we have our user conference. This is in Miami in May. And this is going to be, the other two, the Focus-Ons, are completely free events. You just attend them as you wish. The user conference is a paid event, but it's a huge amount of value here. We have, you know, Governor Tom Ridge, who is the Homeland Security Advisor post the post 9/11 event. Cynthia Cooper, fantastic presenter. A lot of really good content here, and ways to see more, play with the product, learn more, meet lots of people. Every single one of Resolver's employees will be there, and that's something that we do to bring everyone together so that you get to meet our employees directly, and that you get to talk to them and share ideas and give us your vision for what you want to do, so we can hopefully put that into our products and deliver them to you. So that's what we're looking at from communication, and let me just flip over here and see if we have any questions. Let's see if I can bring that up. Okay. I don't know if we have any questions. So that might be it then. If we do, of course, it's happy to answer questions at any point in time. So you know, feel free to send those in as follow-up. We've got a number of people you know, on the call who can answer them now if you'd like to post them in. But if not, we'll wrap, let you get on with the rest of your day. and thank you for joining and listening to the WRM Roadmap.